Hi everyone, welcome back to the Jansen Art Studio. Now I get a lot of email correspondence because I paint a lot of roses and everyone enjoys those. And you know what, they sell really well for me. But I get a lot of requests too for landscapes. So I've been trying to show a few more landscapes, seascapes and stuff. I paint a lot of them. I just don't always film all of them. Kind of like this one that's behind me here. This is a big painting that's going out in our gallery out in Nebraska, and it's a big painting. It's a big long one with some big elk and stuff, and it goes a long way. I paint. So this one is completely 100% acrylic, and I do a lot of things with these types of landscapes, and I'll use a lot of different types of techniques that oil artists don't necessarily use. And can't use because I let certain areas dry up to get certain types of granulation effects. This one right here is a big stretch canvas. Today what I'm going to do a smaller one. This is a 20 by 13. This is what I would consider a small, and then I have mini size, which are even smaller yet, types of landscapes and seascapes. This one I'll paint up. And I found a nice reference photo which I want to change, and I'll talk about that as I get going here. And what I'm going to want to be changing within this reference photo, like this little hill lining up with this one, creates too much of a tangent line. Those two line up just perfectly in the camera's window this time, creating a tangent line. So I'm going to push some of that out on this nice strong horizontal I have here. I might not put that field that's in there. I might put a lake back there, and I might open up all of this. So when I go grab a photo, I grab a photo for ideas and reference. I never copy. I don't like to copy. So I have a stand right there. I put it right up there so it's easy for me to see. So I just based this thing a medium brownish gray color. This is the Heritage medium beige and light gray 1-to-1, so it gives you this kind of nice neutral color. This is a regular MDF board, and it's a nice study panel here. It's pH neutral on this, so it's just a nice painting surface, and it's inexpensive for you. For my acrylics I put out here, I put out some Hansa yellow oxide, burnt sienna, naphthol red light, pine green, phthalo blue, red violet. These are all the colors that you can get right on our websites or up on Amazon. And I'm gonna also put out a tremendous amount, because I'll use a lot of it, of white, of titanium white here, because I'll be using a lot of that as well. And I'll probably have to recharge some of these, because I'm going to paint this one today with a lot of paint. Okay, so one of the first things that I do want to go around is on that painting. I want to put in, and I like to do this now. I started watching several years ago, this one artist, and he used a square with his landscapes and put in a real strong horizontal that helped him direct his eye through his painting. And I just thought, wow, that is really a great idea, and I think I'm going to do that same type of thing. And I like to do that sometimes with a color, or sometimes I use a burnt sienna. Sometimes I'll gray up the burnt sienna a little bit. Here I'll gray it down just a bit, because we're going to be using this with some lakes and cover and all that kind of stuff. And everything I do right now is going to cover up. But I'm just going to take a little bit of color, and I'm just going to draw this horizontal right across the line right there like that. That gives me a good solid horizontal, and I know in my painting up into this area, this will be water, which will have a strong reflection of the sky. And so I just, even right now, just might even take a little bit of my phthalo blue and some of my white right here and some of that gray, and I know right up into this area right here, this strong horizontal, that's going to splash through some of my a lake or something right in there like that. So, and I'll just let that go through. Sometimes I do it this way, sometimes I do it other way, sometimes I sketch it. I have a lot of different techniques. I've studied for 40 years, all different kinds of masters, gone over to Europe and studied and done all different kinds of things. And then I'm a technique painter. I paint techniques. And a lot of people just watch videos, watch my YouTube video stuff, and sit down and just think they can go do it and go copy with some of their their paints, and then some frustration comes because they can't get it exactly, and of course you can't, because you are using a different product, or you're using a different brush, or you don't know completely the technique. Everything that I do can be learned, and it can be learned really easy. And I like to learn techniques. I don't just sit down and paint. I apply techniques, okay? So you can do this. Anybody can do this. So here I have this. Now, what it is with my strong horizontal is I'm up about, probably 35% of the painting here. I'm below halfway. Halfway sits right up here, down into there. That just gives me a good, strong idea here. I'm going to take some burnt sienna, even some of my gray color that's here, and I'm just going to quickly sketch out what I want to do with my mountain. I want my mountain here, and let's take that down just a bit here. I want it to come down. We'll put that other little point into that mountain right there. And this is a mountain up in Montana, and I love the mountains of Montana, Wyoming, and they're really close to our gallery out in Nebraska, which I just love traveling around and seeing all of these. I'm going to put another angled hillside that's going to come down around through here, and we'll angle this other hill right back through here. So we'll let this mountain peek out here through this kind of valley area. And we'll put another one right around out here, and we'll drop some of this down to the lake. So I'm going to drop all this down here towards the lake, coming up here into the front. Now there's this nice hillside that comes up here. I might eliminate some of that, but we'll see that. And then we're going to have another real strong, very, very strong horizontal line, which I'll probably come back and make that right down in here. Might angle it just a bit so it's not quite that horizontal, so it plays against that just a touch. And let's drop that in, as it's going to come down if I decide to put a little bank of a river or something like that in here. And this angle come up here, so I'll create this kind of V shape to pull the viewer into my painting here. That's what I like to do here. So isn't that great? You can see, if you notice, I stay very casual. Okay, stay very casual. I use different edges of my brushes and stuff here, so I get all of this move. Everything's going to cover up. But part of this original part right now, part of the reason I do this is it starts the casual feeling inside me as the artist. And you want that to express all the way through the painting. So you don't want to go trace on a pattern and do all that kind of stuff, because that stiffens you up right away. If you're going to paint a casual landscape, which I'm going to do here, a real casual one, then you want to start that way from the get-go, okay? And at least I do, okay? And so I'm going to come up here. Let's set this brush off to the side here for a second. Let's grab some of my... one of my dirty brushes that I have here. I haven't sit in water because just a few moments ago I was filming painting horses and stuff for some of my online Western class, so we're having a lot of fun in that one. So I'm going to take some of my light. Now, this is really the horizon line. This is called the skyline. And really atmospherics, when you're painting atmospherics and landscapes, as you get down towards the horizon line, if I was looking in the flat plains of Nebraska, which I've done so many times, I mean, I love walking the plains, and this is what's really taught me atmospheric perspective, is that you get down to an 8 or 9 value along the horizon line as you're starting to look out this way, because you get along the curvature of the earth. You go out about 35 miles, and the water vapor lightens up all the colors and makes this real whitish kind of purplish color, violet color, and so it goes up here. But as you get further up into the mountains here, as you get higher up here along the skyline, it's going to get darker. And so the sky really goes from at least a minimum of 8 or 9 up to like a 5. The top part of the sky is a 5. So if you get a ground area down here that's going to get closer to my horizon line, then I'm going to lighten up my sky real close right up here, real close in value right in here, and I'm going to set that in here, and I'll go into my mountain there a bit, and I'll set that up. I'll get a little more blue as I go a bit higher here, and we'll take so a little more phthalo blue. If I want this more towards a blue violet, I just add a little bit of my red violet. You could use an ultramarine blue, but because my painting here is based, has a lot of greens and values of it, whenever I'm painting those, I like to use the phthalo blue rather than the ultramarine blue. It's a color theory thing, and I enjoy color theory. That's where I spent my life, is in color theory, studying color theory. So here's my light. Now let's get it a little darker up here. And I'll even add a little bit of violet up here. I don't want to go any darker than a 5, a value 5. And we talk about our value scale, and everyone should have those out all the time. Artists need value scales. Those are our tools that help us see. So I'll put that on, and let's put this down like here. And I don't want to create big long strokes, and I want to create some variation to how I'm applying some of this color, because that's just good atmospherics. You know, the colors, you get some violets and sometimes a little more blue-green comes out. And let's get a little lighter color right out here along this this particular edge here. And this is just the beginning of it. I'm going to do a lot of stuff up here, but I don't like to work in the sky while it's real wet, because that causes me to blend my colors, and I'm not a blender. All the paintings that you see that I do, I don't blend. I don't like blending. I think it takes away the character of the color. So I do what's called optical. I'm an optical painter, and I paint optics. And so I'm going to put that in. We're going to let that tack up just a minute. I'm going to maybe put a nice big cloud in there, and we'll put some grays. I might even just dirty that up. It's a little too perfect for me. So let's just take some of our dirty burnt sienna and grays, and let's walk some of those colors right into the sky here like this, so it's not quite so blue. Even though we want a beautiful day up in the Montana mountains, we'll go a little different here. That's kind of pretty. That just takes it and mists it up just a bit. Okay, now light on this particular painting is coming from the left, so that's going to dictate how I'm going to paint everything. Oh, one last thing here. Let's do this. Let's take some of that sky color and toss it right into our water here at the same time here. Now, you know, how much light the water really gets is dependent upon the angle that you're looking at it. And if you're looking down quite a bit at something, the water goes darker. If you're looking at almost at the same level as eye level here, the water is going to go light. So we'll just make a quick statement of that right now. That's going to change. That's not the color it's going to end up being. But we might want to come in here and splash a little bit. This just helps you see. I mean, we'll let this all kind of disappear. We're going to do this just kind of get some depth and stuff in our painting. That's just to splash a little color in there. That's not going to, that's just helps me see just a little bit. But I know nothing is perfect, and a lot of this is going to paint out and change. But let's come back up here for a second. Let's go up and work into our mountain. Now, on some of the seascapes and everything, I showed you I use these. They're scrapers. I use all different sizes of them to do different things. I use those. Sometimes I paint techniques that have brushes and stuff with it. Some people like to use their palette knife and cut those down, mountains down. I am one that uses a scraper, a brush, sometimes only a brush. I like to be an artist. I like to use a brush, but I also love the power that a scraper gives it as well. But we have light, like I said, it's coming from the left, right? So let's come over here and let's create a gray. One of the most beautiful grays you create, one reason why I like the phthalo, is I love phthalo, and because phthalo is a blue-green, and I add a naphthol red light here, which is a red-orange. It gets into color theory. And so this red-orange and this actually makes a tertiary. It doesn't make a, you know, you'd think you get a bright violet, but you don't. You get a tertiary gray because inside both colors is a yellow. And so you've got red, yellow, blue. That's one reason why I love this. So these make, when I put this in here, I can warm it even with a little bit more yellow. And this all makes just magnificent colors for snow here. And let's just come in and make some real quick statements here for our mountain here of some of the colors that we might want to have here. on this. And so we'll hit the light. We'll hit the light side of the mountain here, down like that. And I'm going to just let some of this model up through here. This is all going to change, but this is just pick up the color like this, and let's just model it a bit. Let's step out here and put this other one out. We're going to add some trees in there, so that's going to change. Let's come out over here to this side. So I'm going to go down into a little valley, and I'll pick up, and I'll hit the light again back up onto this side here. Okay, it's and then hit little edges right out over here. This brings me back when I paint like this, you know, for when I was young and you know, 15, 16, started painting. I used to follow Bill Alexander, who really kind of pioneered the techniques that Bob Ross and a lot of the other people use. I used to paint with him on PBS every afternoon and after school, and use the palette knife and script down, and of course now I do a more of a brush technique, which I enjoy a lot more. It gives me a little bit more control as an artist. So what I'm doing is setting up light areas, light hit areas that are going to go almost, you can warm it up and, you know, hit more of a sunshine. That's up to you. You add just a bit of yellow to it, you get more of a sunshine. See, it's a little more of a sunshine than what's going on here. And so that's what I like to do, is like I'll come back and hit it again right up on top of that, and I'll get this variation of some of that color, which works wonderful. Now, how much detail you add to your mountain when you're doing something like this is all really going to be controlled by the size of your brush. So sometimes I'll step down, I'll put in like a 3/4 brush here, and then I'll go down to my number 10. This is a number 10 flat here. And I'll start working some of the colors. Now, if I'm going to head into the shadows, I really want to cool this off a bit. So I'm going to want to get it a little bit purple, a little bit to the violet side. So I'll grab some red violet right into this and gray this down. And I'm going to want to have some deep shadows. Sometimes I start the mountains out with deep shadows. Sometimes I start them out like this. And I just love painting like this with the flat. And we'll follow that down, that side down here. This is onto the shadow side here. And we'll grab that. But I can make mountains that have a lot of character. We'll swoop up to the side. If I swoop up, maybe I'll come out of that deep shadow a bit, and we'll put another little lighter gray shadow into that one there. We'll just grab some of that. And you notice all of this stays really wet here because I am working with a lot of paint. Now I'm going to take some of this and we'll just kind of poke it up and encroach up towards the top and create that little ridge line. Maybe right up here we'll create that little ridge line there. Here like that. And you know, on a big painting like the one that's behind me, you know, I do this several times. Of course, you're talking about a painting that gets up to $10,000. You're going to put in a little more work into it than what we do in a little quick study like this. And it's big, so you can have lots of stuff. But I'm going to want to vary the color. So here I'll get a little more violet over here. This brings that violet tone in right off that side there. And sometimes I'll thin it with just a little bit of water and just kind of drag that violet color through so I get some of that variation of those colors there, like that. Let's come over here and let's hit that shadow side. Sometimes I like to leave real strong edges of the shadows, which makes the mountain look really, really rough. And then sometimes I smooth the mountain out a bit. So there's a variation you can do. Add a bit of white, you soften that out off that side. Let's just add another. This is why I like doing it with the brush. I can just come in here and say, yeah, I want to add another little spot right there just to soften that front edge there of that. We can make a lighter violet and put a little bit of light onto that side of the mountain there. And but let's get our dark violets, let's get our grays out here. A little burnt sienna, blue, some of that that naphtha red light, so you get that nice gray. Let's get this nice dark and really get that nice and dark down into the shadow here of this mountain down here. Really into the violet. little blue in there. Get some of that color down in there. Sometimes I'll take my finger and push it, which gives you a different look, but I don't do that too much with landscapes because that starts to blend. I do it a lot with florals, but I don't do it with landscapes that much because that starts more blending than I really want to do. But I really want to come up here and start to get a few more darker colors, darker shadows, so I can really get a nice light dark of the mountain here. And we want to, these are deeper shadows, so whenever you have that cut in that mountain, you're going to have a deeper shadow in there. So you want to make sure you express some of that there, right in there like that, and then it comes out to that other, comes out of that shadow just a bit, but a nice deep shadow there. Let's drop a deeper shadow right in there, and we'll go slightly lighter, maybe a little violet here. Right down in here is bringing this down. Here we'll bring some of that through. And just a nice medium violet color. Cooler will help you paint the core of the mountain in here as it's going down into shadows and cool areas. Right down in through here. And right down into here. It's going to go down into, get covered by some of that other valley there. And I'm going to want to, you know, I've got a nice light here, nice warm light hit there. So I want a softer, down a little bit more gray, not quite as warm. And we want to kind of drag that down here. So the light is coming down here, but it's not as high as that other side there. So I can control that, and I can get that warmer light over here and hit that down that side a bit there. Just push that. So, and I use all different kinds, but I hold my brush. The fusion brushes like this paint is beautiful. You just drag it, and it just you're hitting the ferrule of that brush right onto that surface of that of the board here, and it just drags the paint, and it drags it in an uneven manner because the softness of the brush, and then you get all these little variations that you can kind of control, but not completely, and that's what makes it nice here. And so let's come up here and put a little bit of that cool right in there. Drop that down here. So I was working on some of this light, and I may want to have a bit more. If I want this to look like it's sharp, you can control the angle of this hill by the angle that you're pulling that at. And sometimes I like to kind of you know, pull at that angle so you get that V. But down towards the bottom of the V, you should always curve it just a bit. Not always, but curve it just a bit as that mountain rounds as it's going up into this next shape there. Let's put a little light hit of nice warm light hitting right against that edge there, because that'll really make that pretty as it comes back to the back side of this one here. And we'll put a bit of that light hit right up here onto this side, coming down there like that. So almost like 3 little points of the mountain there. I want to take some of this now in landscape painting and stuff that we do when you get into real good representational art. What I like to classify myself as, that's the kind of painter I am, as a representational artist. We allow impressionism, and we don't try to paint it absolutely real, but you're going to have the shadow of this mountain that's come here, and it will be kind of sharp on that mountain edge there. So, and you'll leave that. Now that's the difference between what a representational artist will do and some other artists will do, is they won't get that nice sharp line here. And there's all different kinds of ways. That's why I love it. So let me go over to some cooler. So I got to get a cooler violet, because this cooler violet here is going to show up as cool snow. That's going to be down in here on the shadow side, into the shadow light side right here. And that's, I don't want to overwhelm the painting with that. That's a bit bright, so we'll just knock it down just a little bit with a little burnt sienna. We'll warm it just a bit, take away some of its complete coolness there. But those will always get that cool reflections into the snow there. And artists put those in, especially impressionist artists, we put those in. Sometimes we'll carry those sky colors and everything right down in there as well. Coming down this side, this is stopping a little quick, so let's even take some of that cool and a little bit of gray. And I'll just carry that on down here like this. Carry that through. I'm just going to try to capture the movement of it. I'm not going to capture all the detail. If I was capturing all the detail, if I was working on a big piece or I want to come in and capture some more detail or something like that, I might take a little bit of color and push the edge of my brush back like this, and then I'm adding more details, more edges, more stuff going on in my mountain. And I don't always, sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. And it's a different look. Everybody's different. We all like different things. My job is to teach you techniques. So use different edges of your brush. Pull that back. You may come in here, grab some of this kind of bluish color. If you want that to gray down a little bit more, add a bit of that red, because that gets that gray here. And let's do that again. Get some of that break up that color. That's why I like that modeling of that color there. And then you can always come back and add more direction to it. So I might come up here and say, hey, let's have a little warmer light cap to our mountain here. Okay, so let's just grab a little more light cap here to our mountain. Nice warm here. Turn this into a nice, powerful Mount Everest here. And get a little more white, get a little bit more paint, drop on some of that nice thick light paint. And when you get that thick paint out there, look how that thing just stands out. And that's the key to it. You got to get that thick paint. We'll just let that come down there a bit. Sometimes I'll push right up to that to create the broken edge, or sometimes I might just take the corner of the brush here and hit another little, like there's a little bit of a ridgeline, something there, all kinds of ways. Or I'll restate some cool and some shadow up this one side here, like that. There, get some different things going on. But I love that thick paint. And if I think that it's too much or too thick, I take the corner of my brush with a little bit of gray and just kind of tap through it to create the little broken, things that you would have on a mountain. Now, we're going to put some sky and stuff in there too, and we can paint that up and into that and really soften it out. But some of this cooler gray, let's drop down along this shadow side of the mountain here and let that just fall down that side. And here I got a little too much blue in, and this is where I touched into that, and I'd leave it. I mean, generally when I paint these, I paint real quick, and I'll leave that. Now, as I come down through here, I might want, we might have some trees or something like that. So I'm going to just use my brush very flat and get this, as it starts to dry up, I get this granulated look here. We call this the granulated look, and this is what acrylics do really, really well. When you're using light values like this, if you're looking like this, artists of old would call it scumbling the grays. It's really easy on a dry surface, whereas the acrylics start to dry up a bit. And I like that particular look of it when that happens. Let's intensify that just a bit. There we go, up over that edge. Maybe a little bit of purpley there. Okay, so that sets that in there. Now look at how much that white going on here dropped down my sky, or the illusion of my sky. So it dropped it down quite a bit. Let's go back to our big brush, and we're going to chunk in some major color here. Let's take some green and burnt sienna. Now that's going to be for our warm side, maybe a bit of blue. This will be onto our warm sunlit side, as we're going to start some of the greens in here for some hills. And then we got to cover some of this up with, we just want to get some color. Block in some of this color. Got a little bit of a glare there. We just want to block in some of this color. Get some variation in there. Maybe a bit of yellow. Get some of these tones in here. This is impressionistic or art type of stuff, which I just love here. And So we'll block that in pretty heavy here. We're going to do a lot to this. As you get over to the other side, if you're doing a heel over here, you might be looking at some of the cooler side of it. So you might, the shadow side of it. So you might get a little bit more blue and a little bit more red-violet into it. So you'd have a warm and a cool side. I'm always painting the light. Always watching where my light is hitting and painting the light. And if I've got a hill here angling down, I'm just gonna say there's that hill here. Okay, that's where that's gonna go. And I'll leave little broken edges up here like this, because that will start to give you the impressions of trees and tree lines and stuff like that. Now up on the top up here, we're going to want to have some snow. We're also going to want to get a nice dirty yellow, because we saw that into the photo here, and we're going to want to have some areas of that happening right in here and going down towards our lake there. And we'll push that in. This is really where a scraper works really well, but this 3/4 inch brush I'm doing here just works so nice. We're just setting it down flat and working some of that in there, working some of that into those hill lines there. Let's go up this, let's get a little more green, burnt sienna. Notice how I don't clean my brush very often. Let's put a little blue in that too. Model that up so that it's got all kinds of color into that, and we'll push that up into that mountain area there just a bit, right up here like that. So that'll give us some ideas of where that tree line is stopping up into the mountain there. And I'm going to want to do that granulation back up over that again, but we'll need to let that just tack up a bit, dry up just a bit. It's another reason why I don't, I paint this. I like to paint on the dry paint, because I'll play with it and then all my color disappears and it's hard. So if I let something slightly tack up or dry, I have an easier time painting it. And getting the colors onto there works a lot better for me. Okay, so we're going to want to also take this, let's put a little gray into this. We're going to want this to go slightly up and into this area of this one as well. Now we'll paint that sky up into there too, but we're going to want to take some snow down. And so there's a nice warm hit, because it's on the light side there. We'll put a little blue, a little violet into that, and we'll hit the green side over here as that's hitting over here onto the shadow side of that mountain. So we'll hit a little shadows here. Just get that nice color variation in there. Makes it kind of pretty. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun just to do that and push that all in. Now, if you're doing something bigger, like the one that's there behind me, and I'm starting to use the brush and I'm starting to create a few trees and stuff like that, and as they go up to the mountain, you're painting impressionistically though. I don't go in there, it's like one of my great students, and she paints everything that I do and studies and everything, and she goes, I finally, when I showed her the picture of this, because I didn't film this one or anything, I'm doing this as a consignment piece, and when I showed her the video and stuff up, the painting, she goes, I finally see how you do mass tone area of trees. You're just painting big swaths of color, and the viewer's eye is picking out that looks like trees. And I said, yeah, because your eye picks out that that's looking like trees. I don't go in there and paint a whole bunch of little trees. I paint the mass tone movement. That's what a rotational artist does, and so it's really a lot of fun. But let's go in and let's just keep blocking some of this in while I let some of this dry up so I can continue moving through my painting here. And I do have this is real close to that tangent line there. So I'm going to take that green out of this for a second. I kind of messed that up. I want to get this up a little bit higher with that stroke. And see, I can drag this down. See how I drag that down? And that's what's going to give me the impression of the snow line ending at the tree line right down through there like that. And, I might create an extra little bump there, or a little something that fades away. You could create another little mountain way back there into the back. There's all different kinds of ways. I look for photos and I get a nice photo reference of something, but I don't try to copy it, because that makes me stiff. So I kind of put in what I like, what I think my photo would like to have there. That's a little better. You can put a little skier going down the mountain there if you want. You can do anything you want. There's a lot of fun. Let's get some of that, because that's starting to tack up there. So let's get some of our gray right here like that. And just a little bit into the brush, just a little bit into the brush, and push that along here. Gray, get that gray color going here like that. This is what's going to give us the feeling of snow onto the trees here. We're just going to, quickly grab it. We're not going to, you might want to dance it around a bit here. Here like that. Dance around certain areas of that. And also take some out. You can take some out with some greens there as well. Back and forth. Paint back and forth. And if you start to blend too much, and that's starting to blend up just a bit, I'm going to stop, let it dry up again here, so I can do some more granulation on the top of that. Let's get some yellows, a little bit of that light. Just granulate a little bit of this into this area. That works kind of nice. There, just breaks up those tones. Get a little browns. Set up some. Let the viewer, we've all looked at mountains, and if I leave it into this area where, open like that, I can let the viewer see what they see. But if I go in there and try to paint something perfect, then I take away their imagination. And I read that by one impressionist painter. He says, you don't want to rob the viewer of their imagination. And that is so true. So here I'll just push in a little bit of shadow here. Maybe some angled shadows. You're seeing some of that stuff go on there. Maybe a little bit of my gray drug up over here. Just lightly drag that with it. That's what the fusion brushes are designed to do. Do that light dragging here. Just break up those colors a bit. Don't blend it. Just drag it through and do what we call optical. Paint it optically. Gives you a different look. Now this has got a nice little roundy point on it, I'm just seeing, so I might jagged that up just a bit more here. Here we go. Just push that over and jagged that up. Make it a little rougher like its other ones over here. There we go, just like that. And see, like I hit that white and I dropped that little bit there. I like it there. It just added a little spark. And sometimes I like that. And sometimes I'll come back and add more little sparks everywhere into the painting. I like those. Let's go down here and let's create a nice kind of a tan color, a little bit of white, nice grayed color here. And let's rework some of this area that's going to come down towards this lake here. And let that, because we want this green to fade out into some ground. Now, one of the things I like to do is break up some of the areas of my green with some of my other color. So I'm going to step away from that large brush. Let's go into this number 10 here again. And let's just push in areas here of that, like these are, breaking areas of the trees. And, you're going back into some meadows and stuff like that into the mountain there. So it's not all trees here. That breaks up. Sometimes just a solid mountain of trees isn't as interesting as if you broke it up a bit. And let's just create a little warmer color here onto this side. Break that up a bit, like there's meadows and stuff like that going on there. And we do that with some of our warm tan colors, yellow oxide, burnt sienna, right into some of my greens and stuff here too. But I slide that, and I don't want to do it too many times because I want to leave this broken, this fracturing of this color out like that, so that I don't have to, so I get this interest here and here. So we'll leave some of that in there. That's kind of nice. It breaks that up a bit. And let's take some of that. Maybe there's a hit of that, like a little hill here, like that. comes down. You can have little hits of it everywhere along here because we're going to put some trees in here as well. So let's cool it down a bit. A little bit of our violet color here. Put some over here onto this side. Of course, this is that forward hill will drag there as well. But now what I'll do is take some of that violet, some of that green here. Sometimes I do this with a smaller brush. Sometimes I do it with this one. And I just load it up real stiff, kind of almost dry. And I'll push up and down along the edges of that. And push and fracture up the edges of that brushwork there. So that this will create the look of, you'll start to see some trees in there. And on big paintings, I will do this 5 or 6 times, breaking it back and forth, doing stuff like this, back and forth, and breaking it up. And sometimes I'll come back and hit this, the light again. It all depends on the size of the painting, the complexity and stuff of the painting, but I'll hit the light again and tap that in and out now of some of those little suggestions of trees. So I give little broken areas, and the viewer will see that as the line, the meadow here moving in and out of the tree line here. Maybe I'll drag some right back here like this. Just drag it, drag that dry paint there, and you create that little meadow there. Here. Let's create this one right up in here again. Let this come right down here towards the front here. This comes down. We'll put some more green trees and stuff in there. Maybe as I come forward here, I can even get a little more of that burnt sienna, that warm color here is this warm. Let some of that take over in here as well. Break up those colors. Go back to some of my green. So on detailed paintings, I'll do this quite a few times, back and forth. On other paintings, I'll just do it gently, softly like this. And, just and leave a lot for the viewer's imagination. It all depends on how much I want to do. And again, I paint all different kinds of ways. Let's just drop this in here. Boom, get some of that in. Now, that's a bit strong. But don't worry about it. I'll kick it down here. And actually, that should be on the cool side. So I should get a little purpley color into that as well here. And push that around. So I'll use my finger. That softens it out quite a bit. So, and let's get a little bit of that purple color into that. Bit more of that into that. There we go. Just let some of that happen there. And, I might take some of this purple color. Let's go back over here towards our grays and reset our purple color here. Blue and red violet. And phthalo blue, red violet, a little more phthalo blue. If I want it to gray down a bit, I'll grab some of this nice naphtha red light, which grays into the blue really easy. So I get some of this purple. Not quite so light, but I get some of this nice purple color here. That's kind of a pretty color, and I'll use it dry. I'll let this kind of get sticky here, stretch it out, get kind of sticky here, and just drag a bit of that through here like this. So some of that snow line is coming right down into that. Now you're seeing a combination of these colors kind of modeling through, and the viewer will see that as different amounts of snow and stuff coming down here. You're painting optically. That's the beautiful part about it. We have fun. And painting optically is a lot of fun. That's what I love to teach. That's what I do in all of my online classes. I teach you how to see and paint optically. And there's all kinds of techniques the masters used and we can use today to grab looks pretty quickly. But it takes a bit more, a bit longer, so you're paying an extra hour onto a painting like this than you do onto a palette knife painting, but you get just a little bit more going on, a little bit more beautiful coloring and stuff going on. More pigments, more color, more stuff going on, higher price. That's the way it works. So, and it works. It really does. Okay, now before I go down towards the bottom of the painting here some more, I'm going to take and I'm going to go revisit my sky here. Just going to take some of this nice light color here. And I get some of these violets and everything in here. Let's revisit some of this sky. And just a bit more blue, and this, you know, put some of those colors of this mountain and stuff right up in here. And move some of that around here. And I like to take these, when I do this, I like to take this right up into the sky. So, you know, I've got the sky once on there, and it looks, you know, you can leave it kind of simplistic to the mountain. I like the skies to have some movement, so I'm going to add some more movement and stuff into the sky here. And just a bit more stuff going on. And a cloud, too. I want to work a cloud. So I like to work, I like paint. I like lots of paint. I like to go through and do stuff again. A painting, you know, acrylics, you know, being our medium's water, we can thin that painting down, that paint way down too much. And then the painting just doesn't have life. Let's put a big old cloud coming right back, cloud bank coming right up over here. And just push that around. And again, just push that into your edge there, and just let that, you know, let that take over the sky there just a bit. Some of that movement, not quite as light as the mountain itself. You could, but then it starts to become a painting of clouds as opposed to the mountain. So, and sometimes when I paint clouds like this, I'll put clouds on, and I'll take some of my gray from my mountain and colors that I have here, and I'll put some nice soft shadows and stuff like that in onto the sides, and that carries those mountain colors up into the clouds, which work really well. Sometimes I leave one side of the mountain with just a few little clouds, and you know, some have more. Sometimes I go all the way across. There's all kinds of things that you can do. But again, I like to drag that color across. Let's get a bit of grayness into that. I like to drag that color across, drag that on there, and create some of those fractured, those granulated edges, and let that optically there. I can soften that. You can take a brush of water and just go through and soften that. Sometimes I don't like that, and many times I'll come back and I'll do what I call really spot the blue. Okay, so let me show you. I'll come over to a clean area on my palette, and I'll take some blue. Let's get this towards a violet, a beautiful violet, and we'll lighten it up. So I'll make this real clean. So I got a real gray to blue sky there. So I make this other cleaner color, and that might be a bit violet for me. So we'll go a little more blue. Clean blue, and I'll paint backwards into it a bit, into the cloud, into the sky there, and create, like we can paint into the mountain there with some of this blue. Sometimes I do this with a cloud color here. Sometimes I do it with the blue, but you can come back in here and blue paint back into your clouds. Set some different looks there. Colors. Get some of the blue spot, like right up here against the edge of this mountain here. And it's just a sky that has a lot of movement and beauty to it. Maybe I'll reset that cloud, just a touch of movement there. I really like it when I do come in and spot, especially coming off to the shadow side of the mountain, a bit of a cloud that's coming right over the mountain. Sometimes I'll push the cloud into the mountain here, but around like that, grab some of that nice movement. But I keep the clouds fairly, I'm watching my brush calligraphy, the movement of my brush, how much my brush moves in the cloud compared to the mountain. And I keep the movement in the mountain more, so that the mountain comes in front of the cloud. So I use short, choppy strokes here with the values a little closer together here. And that just creates some nice, it's a nice look. I can put a little bit of that light over here. Remember, light is coming from the left, so even the clouds would be lit from the left, shadowed to the right. And we'll put another little faded out one here like this. Let that drag back through towards the mountain there. That's nice. nice wispy clouds. All kinds of ways to do clouds. I do entire classes on clouds. This is just a real quick acrylic way. And see, that looks very much like you've blended it and painted it with oils and stuff when we've painted it with acrylic. I'm going to reset my nice warm top to that mountain. I'm going to take a little, come over here, clean area. Some of my yellow, nice warm yellow oxide and white. Let's pop that back up there. I really want to see this nice point of this mountain here. Here like that. Leave that a little broken there. That really pops it forward. And we'll put a little bit of the gray into that. Just break that up a bit. There. Little purple colors there. That makes that real kind of pretty. And I could have, and I should have, down here at the base of this, I've got to get that atmospheric just a bit more. So I've got to get my sky just a touch more. And you got to remember, acrylics dry one value or so, at least these do, about one value darker, depending on the color, but about one value darker. So you put it on just a touch lighter than what you think. And then you can walk that up a bit, get a little bit of that blue. But that'll give you your atmospherics there better. And I got that a little smooth over here. So let's just break up that edge there with a bit of a green brush. And let's get that, go back up over here, over to this side. And get those atmospherics back up over to this side as well. Get that light horizon or skyline here. It gets lighter as you get down towards the horizon. We're painting up onto the skyline here. Light up towards the horizon there. There we go. Put more of this through there to let some of that streak through. There, just give a bit of that broken edge into that coloring there. That's all good. I'm really into shadows and stuff down here, and that's fine. I'm going to see in the final painting, I'm going to go real light right back up here, but I'm really into the shadows. But you know, trees and all that kind of stuff, pine trees and everything are dark. They don't get real light. So I'm going to mix a little warmer yellow-green here and just finish brushing this down right through here because I got to paint this other hill up in front. A little bit goes into there. That's fine. Just little breaks, little broken stuff of some of the light colors there come through just a bit. It just looks just like a bit of snow coming through. Breaks up some of that those areas. So you just don't, when you're painting like this and you're painting an interesting mountain, you just don't want to have, you know, an entire area of color. You like to break it all up with lots of little color going on here, and that's what makes it nice, makes it pretty. Little stuff going on. I'm still not super happy with this, the way this edge is here. I want to make that just a little stiffer. Here. There we go. We'll just push that like that. Let that kind of fade away. That's better. Could be a little warmer. Could be. Here. A little warmer color right up there on the top. There. So you can see it can come back. This is what I love. This is why I love painting with acrylics. I can come back right away and I can hit that full body color right away because it's dry or tacky up underneath. If I was into oils, it would paint right into that other oil and soak up. Of course, you can get it with oils. You have to go thicker and thicker and thicker, but it's so easy to get it so quickly with the acrylic. And you can get a nice look. So I like, let's put a little bit lighter violet over here, and we'll come down. Yeah, that's good. Let's quit playing with that. And because you could just keep adding and adding and adding, and at some point in time you got to get into your painting some more. Let's get down here. Let's get some more yellows. Let's lighten it up. A little bit of blues, yellows, a little burnt sienna, greens. Let's get some pretty color going here, a lot of it. And we'll come in right, use the chisel part of this big brush. And we'll set that ground, that water ground line right in there again. And let's dirty up that brush with some of these greens and burnt siennas and some of that yellow. And let's just slide through that a bit here. Right back just a bit. Tap through. There. I'll pull that down. Let's get that nice light again right through there. See, I love that broken fracturing of the color that you get from that fusion. That just gives you this interest. And then just if you have an edge that's bothering you that might be a bit sharp, just take it off. Just a touch like that. Just take it off. Sometimes pull down, because the pull down brings the viewer's eye to the front here. But usually what I do is I'll set, because you know it's going to dry a little darker. So I'll set a light here several times till I get this nice thick paint. I like the thick paint into that. And I might even pull down like a little valley or something, like I'll create that little valley of that coming down here. Then we'll soften some of those edges. See, I let those colors override each other. Try not to do it too many times because they'll blend. And we don't want blending. At least I don't. And so I'll just set that impression of that. I like those colors. Maybe I'll just tap that through just a bit more back through here. Let that kind of fade out back in there. Some more stuff going on. You can, again, take some of your dark colors and a little cool, some of these, model it up here. You get those different kinds of greens and stuff and create some small verticals that will start to make it look like trees in there. You're a landscape painter. You're a painter of verticals, horizontals, and angles. And, that just gives you, that's a really good look to that. And so I'm going to come back here, and you thought maybe that was too light. Now, look, it's not. Let's just skip a little more light right into there. Some of the purple from that mountain. Let's put some of that in there. So we'll get a bit of that color of that mountain coming in here. Bit of that light skipping there. Let's get a bit of this blue going in there like that. Let's get a nice rich burnt sienna and blue. And maybe a bit of my violet. Let's grab some of that. Get a nice rich dark shadowy color over here into this side. Push that into that little lake area there. And maybe a touch of that right in here, right along that shoreline. Break up that edge a bit. Get some lights and darks there. And I usually, when I'm painting a lake like this, sometimes I'll do a lot of pulling down. That's how we used to do, when we painted the more simplistic ones. We do a lot of pull down. So you pull down like this to create the reflections and stuff. But we're sitting at such a sharp angle to the water here. You're not going to have too many reflections. You really won't. You'll have color reflections more than anything. So I'm just going to make sure I put some of my mountain colors into that water and get out of there. I don't need to have that much more stuff going on in there. Let's take some of our yellows here. Now, in the original and the reference photo, there's some hills they're covering back behind this. Some of this pulling back down through. We'll take out some of our water here. There's a bigger, sliding hill off to the side here. I should go to my big brush and just quickly get that in there. Get that in there. This would be the warm side. Let's take some of this up and into be that water there. This will be the warm side here. And but it's going to take a few times of doing this and modeling this back and forth with some of this color. See, I want to model that in there. Let's get some of our greens, some of our violets, some cooler colors back in here. Paint those greens like these are trees and stuff going on here. And again, just paint the impression. Don't, get wild and crazy about painting realism there. You know, we're painting the impression of something going on. This is a different way. You know, it's like the flowers and stuff that I paint. I'm a representational with what's called representational art. And those of you that don't know that, look it up and look it up. That's what you do. Is you're right between an impressionist and a realist, and it's you're not painting realism, and you're not painting quite impressionism. You're painting kind of you're making it look like something, but without all the finite details. So we can make this kind of look like trees and stuff there, and stuff going on there, but we don't need to get wild and crazy with them. Right up in here, we'll put some of that violet colors and purples, dance some of that around there like that. Let some of that come through. And I go through a lot of paper towels because I'm constantly pinch wiping my brush and adjusting the hue, the color on it. And let's go some more. I'm going to need to get some more white out here too. Let's dirty this all up and start to drag some of that through. Now see, this is where it starts to get pretty. As more you drag it through, you're going to start putting on more tones. And this is what you look for. And a good impressionist will come here and put some different angles to their strokes. You know, maybe this is going to be grasslands or something up here. And they'll start doing some other things other brush movements to suggest some of that. I'm going to add just a touch of that Hansa this time too, and get some of that up here. And we're gonna, I'm putting the tones in right now. I'm modeling in and getting some of these tones in here. Then I'll go in and correct the shapes and stuff a bit. But I want to get some of these tones in, back and forth, and all these different kinds of tones broken up in here several times. And as I come forward, I have to do it more times because I want more stuff going on as I come forward. So I do it more times. Back and forth, and sometimes we'll go verticals. Sometimes lots of verticals. This is really where, you know, your scrapers and stuff, you know, I just take a big thing like this, and if I'm working a lot where I hold it flat, and if I'm painting, this is how I love to paint like beach scenes and stuff like that. Well, I'll do the same type of thing here with a painting like this. So I get this amount of paint in that movement, and then I can come in here and soften that out like that. So that's why I love those scrapers. I soften that movement out, and just a little bit of brush direction pushes it right into where you might want that to be. So this is where a scraper really comes in, and you grab some of that nice thick paint just like this, and you just pull that across like that. Set that in, and you've set in this real light edge here, some bushes and stuff there. You can paint rocks. We could take our time and paint rocks and stuff like that here. You know, I'm not going to do that today, but we have other videos for that. Lots of stuff. We paint all kinds of stuff. Let's gray this up a bit here. Grab some of that, and let's just scrape up, grab a bead of that, and just grab that right up over that edge. Sometimes just pull that down through like that. Oh, that's great. I love those fractured edges there. That just gives you so much nice interest in life, and you can soften some of that. You know, these are non-toxic acrylics, so go ahead and stick your fingers in it. You don't need to worry about that, you know, anything with them. So sometimes you'll use a smaller brush, just paint through, give a little bit of direction to that. So scrape it one way and then a little bit of brush the other way. You get a bit more stuff going on. It's great. You can soften down this edge a bit, like this is a little hill. Pull down. Now I get that so much paint on there, I can pull once or twice and give this nice angle here. Broken edge. We can make this, if we pull our edge down here, we can make it look a little more like a breakdown or dropping down to the shoreline of that little river there. You know, we could put a little darker grays in there, a little blue and red and some browns. some of these other colors in here. Just break that up here a bit. Some of that going on. Model some of that together here. You know, maybe drop some of that right in there. Make this little river like it's, we don't have to have exactly where that river is coming into it or show that. You can have overlapping planes, you know, where where the viewer can't see that, and we can hide it behind some other stuff going on there. We could put some trees down in there. You know, you could put another little hill and trees and make these overlapping hills here, so that, which is kind of nice here. And since light's coming from the left and down here on the right, let's drop this down to a cool. So a little bit of blue and a little bit of violet in here, some of my yellow. Let's cool this off here into the shadow here onto this side. Let those run in. Let that come into a shadow. Let's get back up and warm it up a bit as we come up to the top. A little more burnt sienna, a little more yellow. Up here, drop that down here like that. So that'll be the warm side there. Maybe just a bit more light. This is where I really like to hold the brush very flat, or use the scraper. I'll use the scraper and grab something like this and push up and down here. Maybe pull that across like that, and you get that nice look right away. Pull it right into that shadow. Let's come in and tap a little bit more light. I like to leave that energy of that light, because we're painters of light. But if it's too much, just touch into that, push that around here like that, here like that. You can do it with the scraper as well. That's light edges a little bit much, so I just go over it just a touch, soften that out there. But that gives you a nice look. Let's grab some of this light color and put that right into the edge. Break up that edge of that water so it's not quite so perfect. When you're painting representational art, you don't want to have all your edges absolutely perfect, because you want them to overlap and be kind of soft, because you want the viewer to see what they see, you know. So we'll give just like the idea of that little river, just kind of going back in there. Let's just cut this into a bank, shadow side of a bank. That just heads down there towards that. There, just little touches of it. You don't need very much of this to suggest that that's where that little guy is going back there. Let's get since we're getting up in here, the river's actually going to go darker since our angle's changing. Now this comes, so how do you know this? This comes from painting a lot of them and going out into the field and studying water and looking at them and stuff. So I've done that for years and years. There we go. That's kind of nice. And just let that just kind of break in there. Just like this, the idea of it running down in there. Let's get a nice strong violet. And I love in forward water, I know you can't see that, but I take into this, I love it in forward water to also model in a little warm color of my burnt siennas. So you'll see that in some of my beach paintings and stuff that I do. I love that burnt sienna to come in there. Not mix it up real well, just strike it in and through, and that's, you know, because it's the water, it gets darker up here if your angle is down at it, but it still has a beautiful reflection that can pick up some of the other colors that are around here as you're painting that. So we would like to keep that. Get that burnt sienna in there. Drag that through a bit, pull down if you want to create more of a reflection. And that helps that reflection there. Just create the illusion. Don't overpaint it, because then the viewer can't let their you rob the viewer's imagination. Don't overpaint it. Here, just let that sit like that. And Now, back in here, since this is the shadow side, so we really want to make a powerful landscape here. And this is getting some power to it, but really want it powerful. We keep this, just like this photo that's going to go on here, we're going to keep this powerful dark sitting right here, maybe have this plane of light that's right there with it. So let's just go ahead and try that first. And I need to get out some, remember I said I was going to need to get more white. And that I need to do. Let's get a little bit more of this white out here. And so grab some of that, grab some of this white here. Don't mix it too much, just model this in. Now you could use the scraper, or you could use what I like to do is this big 3/4 inch. Let's get lots of paint out here on this and create this nice light plane. I'll need to get some more yellow oxide there as well. We'll create this light plane here that this shadow plane here is going to play against and give us a beautiful contrast. Remember, we're artists of light. We paint the light and we plan the light into our paintings. And that's what I'm doing here, is I'm planning where my light is going to go. Now, I might want to create a bit of a bank here, so I'll go back to my shadowy tones here and create a bit of a bank where that's going to come right down towards that river there. Here. Right in there like that. And that gives me a nice reason also for this nice dark sienna color in there in the front. Just pull it down at an angle here. And again, I'm going to go back and forth with some of these and create some of that look here. And then on this other side here, let's take our burnt sienna. Let's get our purpley violets into that. Maybe a bit of our green. Nice dark. And let's pull that down. Go real dark here at first. Set in the core dark. You ever heard of that? That's that core dark shadow. Set that in. And then, you know, right now some of you are going, oh, you took a beautiful painting and you ruined it. No, you're setting in the core colors. This isn't all of it. This is just the first go of these colors. Let's push some of that right into here, into that mountain back there. Bring those together over there. Maybe a touch of green. Back through here, just break up that so they see just all kinds of stuff going on there, and the viewer's eye will see everything. Right? That's what we're doing. We're representing the object, not physically painting it perfect. We're just representing it, that movement. We don't need to. We just need to get some of that movement in there. There, like that. Okay, and so we got the core in there. I'm going to let that tack up just a bit, and there's a lot of it there, so it might take a moment. And while I squirt out a little more yellow oxide here into my painting, and let's grab some of that. Let's come right down in here, and let's push a bit of that yellow right into this area here. Take some of these colors and tones and push them back. This is where it gets pretty, is that you start to let these tones override each other a bit. We're going to want to have, you know, a bit of sunshine, like that edge, come down, just and a few slightly angled strokes so that the viewer sees that that's going to slope down. Now you can come up on here and put a few trees and stuff like that too. That works as well. Right up along the edge here, we can put some of this light right up onto the edge, push up and down a bit, but then go right back down into that shadow and just direct that right down here, down like that, so you get this nice, real cool and warm situation here. And we'll grab some other tones here. Let's just drag some of that other tone right through there. Maybe pull some of this in and out. There, like that. And let's soften and break that up here. Break that up a bit. Get some of that going on here. that. Now remember, this, it's a bit light right now, but it's going to dry down. So you're painting a bit light. We want to get this nice warm and this nice light and warm playing up against this edge. Now when you're painting on a river like this, and if you're not going to do a rocky edge, if you're going to do, we can do the cut bank, but we can also do the soft bank, which you take your water and this back and forth. You know, a cut bank is nice. You just pull back at a slight angle like that, and you know, that creates the cutting of the bank here, you know, into the water. But painting back and forth, I can do it more soft out here. You go more towards your lights, and you bring the tones together a little bit, and then you cross them back and forth. And what that does is it gives you a softer water's edge, see? And this is what we do on beaches and stuff like that when I paint beaches. So I go back and forth like that and create that soft water's edge. Sometimes I do the cut bank, which adds a lot of interest. Sometimes I paint rocks along the edges. Sometimes I do that. But we like this nice broken edge there like that. Doesn't that look great? And I took some of it out here. I want to put some of it back, especially as it starts to dry up. It'll dry down. It'll soften out. So we want to preserve some of that nice spots of color, some of that movement and stuff of color. You know, we want to create the grasses and stuff here. So, you know, some of the grasses, look, a few verticals in here. A few touches of your verticals like this to create that soft grass look there with that. And let's get more of our siennas. Not quite as yellow. Here, a little bit of blue into that just to cool it down a touch. And drag some of that through here onto the shadow side. Break up some of this heavy, heavy color. Dragging some of that. And it's easy to do that now that this is tacked up a bit. We'll keep those colors softer here. Not quite as much. They can get a bit more of a light right along the edge, the top edge there. More of a light, like there's that light because it's hitting into the sun, but then it goes down into the shadow here of this, down like that. That's pretty good. Break those edges. Let some of that stuff just cross back and forth and break the edges. You're painting at angles for the movement. In other words, I can create more of a dirty here, some violet, more of a cut bank here, right into this here, like that drops down. You can put some of that violet cut bank into that one there. But when you get back here, maybe you have bushes, maybe you have some greens, maybe you have some other stuff going on here. We're gonna not paint them as much as just give the idea of them here. Paint back and forth with these colors like this, see? And this is, I'm not going to go in there and specifically paint trees or anything. I'm just going to give some impressions. That's what I like to do. Sometimes I do. You know, there's other techniques I use to do other things, but sometimes I paint very impressionistic like this, and I need to have a little bit more going on up over here in the painting, and break these edges up here just a touch more. Here I want to break some of this. Now that looks real light, but remember, and see how it's pulling your eye to the front here though, but remember it's going to dry down, so we can get some other grayer tones in there as well here, just to break that a bit, so it's not always just yellow. Get a few other tones. That's where it gets pretty, where I usually take the brush here several times and go back and forth and work it around here. You know, and sometimes when I paint these, I set myself a time limit to keep myself from playing too much in it, because I will. Sometimes I'll put a little brighter touch of the color in here, because intensity, like a little Hansa yellow into that, the intensity pulls you forward. And remember, this is going to dry down. This is going to dry down. The nice thing about the acrylics is, yes, okay, the acrylics dry a little darker, and some people find that frustrating, but not if it's drying as you're painting it and you're seeing what the color is. You need to lighten something up, then just go lighten it up. So I don't find that frustrating at all, you know, for me. Let's get just a few verticals in there. Just push that around. Get that going on there. Just different artists will have different ways of doing things, and that's why I like to study all of them and paint them, and then switch stuff over. You know, granted, many of the artists I study with paint with the oils, and I find, you know, I used to paint with oils, and I found doing some optical techniques more difficult with oils than with acrylics, because the acrylics you can get them dry. Then it makes it look like you know what you're doing as you're dragging these colors over that. Otherwise, you got to get the consistency of your oils really perfect, and I like it doing it this way too, faster. So I don't have to worry about that consistency problem. Just grab it, come down here and paint. The consistency is perfect. There. I'll grab some of that. So if I'm going to work edges here like this, I'll work them several times and start to add some of the interest that I might want to have here on this. If I want to get a bit more of a light streak of a hill here, you know, I might push that in, soften that bit there just a bit. And again, it's a representation of what you're painting. You're not you're impressionistically painting it here, giving the working of the edges. Now, again, you can put in all kinds of trees. I can put in a line of trees. When I do trees basically as a block. Let's cool this off. Green, blue, and red violet. Maybe a bit of my burnt sienna in there, because I just love to have that in some of these colors and stuff here. But let's just say I wanted to put some kind of idea of trees or something coming right up here on this side. So I'll drop that dark in there. If I was going to drop any light onto them, which side would you go on? You would hit kind of the left side here, because that's the side that where the sunlight is. We can even get a bit more yellow hitting here onto some of them. Here, like this, just a touch. Now I'm not going to do a bunch of them here. I'm just going to suggest a few of them there. I might even take a bit of that light here and just hit a few areas here, thinking on the left side of those here. There, like that. You might hit a few of those. Touch some of that tone around. Let's take some of this light here, a little bit more yellow, and right up in front of that, put that hill right back up in front of that. You can push it in and out, and then that hill is going in and out of those trees as well right there if you want. We'll hit that light edge coming right here. We'll build this edge up just a bit more. There, coming down that edge. And see, as you get those tones working back and forth, that's when it really starts to get pretty. You know, I could put a bigger tree right in here. I'll just break a little greenish color into there. Just take some of that light away. And again, it's all up to you just how much more. See, all these colors start to really work in here. And I might take some more yellow oxide and burnt sienna here. Love this tone. Rich tone, maybe a little Hansa with that too. So it's a little brighter. Love this rich tone, especially up into my foreground area. See how much brighter that is? It's really quite a bit brighter. And let's get a little bit of light into that. Just really works well. Get some yellows. And see how I hold my brush very flat. Now as I work some of this, as I work some of these, I want to get this edging, modeling stuff. I want brush movements and stuff, the calligraphy of it here. And as I get lighter, I'll get my movements smaller so that I don't make big, huge impacts here. But this is what really builds, as I build this area up here, this is what really makes this front area right here come forward. And we can push up a bit and make this look more like grasses coming up against the edge of that water there. So I look for those crossing type of planes. There's a lot that you can do. And this is what I show in my classes. Different types of situation, different artists use different things, tools, and we can create some of that. So see how all of that movement here really pulls it forward. We can put just a bit of that color right in here, so right up against that cut edge there of that bank. And let's just drop that bank in there again, right down like that. And that just gives you a nice representation here. It's fun. Let's just drag a bit of that through there just to break up some of that color. You know, do you want to go lighter? You could go lighter yet. I mean, if you really want to take the brave pill and come out here and really hit up towards a value 8 or 9 here with your front grasses, you can do that. You're on the warm side, the light side of your painting here. And so you can really drag the viewer in and take them on this journey. And if you're going to do that, then I always say, you know, drop it down just a bit here, come back, hit an edge of that light somewhere here, so the viewer travels in. Okay, and we can put a bit of that warmth right in there. So the viewer travels in here, in like that, and then let's hit the light one more time back in here. We're probably going to want a little more light. Use that chisel edge of that brush, hit that again, right up in there like that, and take a little bit of the darker color, just soften into that just a touch. Now you're really hitting that light. And this is some of the stuff I do towards the end of the painting, where I determine, oh, okay, I want to, you know, figure out how much contrast, how much interest, how much pow I want to add to the painting here. And maybe a little trail, something going up there like that takes you in towards that mountain. You can do that. And then you go back and revisit your mountain. Do you want to have, you know, this one dies out pretty quickly here. Dies out pretty quickly right up into there. And so you can let that happen. But I do like this lighter color. Now this will dry down just a bit. And it's all up to you now to determine how much brush work, how much what we call the calligraphy of your brush, how much of that you're going to let sit in here to, you know, with this movement and stuff going on, because that's interest. Brush movement, the calligraphy of it is interest, and it's great. And you can scrape some of that on to get some of this out here like this. It's a little different, and use this to create, I mean, you could create some different angles and edges, push a little green into that. It makes a bit of a different look, you know, so you can have a bit of that green going in there. All that kind of good stuff. There's just lots of things to go. Maybe you take some of that lighter green and let's just hit over here to our edges of our trees. Just a touch of that, because it will dry down. So a touch lighter than you think. And let's just scrape that edge there. A little bit of this green and yellow. Just scrape that edge so you get that nice fracture edge that comes from that acrylic. Pull that down a bit there. You get a nice, and you create a nice painting. How light you go, start letting it dry up here and start seeing what the dry painting looks like, and then hitting a few other areas maybe with some of that light, some of those edges of light. That's up to you how much it goes, but it's a lot of fun. You can go back up to your sky, revisit some of that. I might revisit that cloud up there one more time. It kind of dried down here. Kind of dried down just a bit. I might push it up, but it's a little different. A different type of landscape for you. There's all different kinds of ways to paint them. You know, of course, I like to add elk and rocks and movement of water and all that kind of good stuff. It makes it fun too. So it all depends on how much work you want to put, how much time. But it's kind of fun as it dries down here to look at it and see, you know, come back in and just brush over that. just lightly, and see how much more interest that adds. I'll go just a bit of the green here and use the dry granulation of the acrylic like that, and just get that. Now you can do that with oils, but you have to let them tack up, a day or so, and it's a lot easier with the acrylics, I find, because I can do it just right now. Everybody's different. I might put a little bit more of a shine on that water, just a bit more of a water shine here right along the edge, and I'll just take that light, just model into my brush like this, and just drag that right along that edge there like that. Just leave that water shine there, and if some areas I want to take out, then I'll pull down with some of my blues here, just like that, to create some of that interest and stuff. So it's kind of fun. It's an hour and a half. We painted in an hour and a half. I know there's people out there that paint them faster. This is a quick little thing, give you a different look to a landscape. There's a lot more things you can do. Trees, we do that, and all kinds of things, all different ways in which I do trees and everything. But painting a mountain like this is kind of fun. And I've got a lot of contrast there in that mountain, but the one that I'm kind of looking at has a lot of contrast and stuff up into that mountain too. So it's up to you how much you're going to want. I could expand, if looking at it, I could take some of my gray here, and just lighten this back up here, and let's just expand the light. Not quite as light as the top of the mountain there, but let's expand the light down just a bit onto this side here. And that'll put a little more light into the mountain itself. And see, that's kind of pretty. Those are the kinds of things I look at and play with. Maybe I want to pull this down to the edge down here a bit. And you can do that. See, if you just let that happen, these little edges and stuff, you can do it so easy. Your paint doesn't have to be wet. Your paint doesn't have to be wet to do this. This is easy stuff. This is great, and you get all these different looks if the paint is not wet, and you get this dry granulation bit onto it. Makes it look really pretty. Let's get just a touch more light right up here. Just get a little fractured edges there. That's kind of pretty. So having some more of that light, see, that changes the whole flavor or feeling of the mountain. We can take some of this more granulated here and revisit some of this back in here. So if you want to grab some of that. Now, I'm going to rinse some of that color out of my brush. Now I could take water and soften that. Water will soften those edges out too, make it look more like snow coming through, easy. Or you can take your greens and tap your greens through some of your tree colors through, and incorporate that all that snow there into that mountain. And there's just lots of ways. I'm going to put a little bit of that over here. I usually like to pull your eye in here. I don't go out here too much in that, but I'll put a little bit out there like that, just to create some optical areas there. Nice warm color there with that. It puts that all in. There you go. Okay, I don't think I'll play with that anymore. But look at it. See, this is drying down here, drying down into place. Not quite as light. This will dry down just a bit. And, you may want to hit it again with the light. Let it dry down for about 10-15 minutes here. Start to settle down and take a look if you want to get some more interest in it or add more things. All right, there you go. There's a quick little landscape, painting it with the brush, setting in a nice strong horizontal, and working some different planes, working the light and stuff. That's just one of many different ways I do landscapes. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.